Hello, we're live. You know what that means? It's time to start it. Welcome to This Week on Our Collective Heads. We are here live doing E3 wrap-up. So the first day of E3, and technically it's the day before E3, the Sunday prior to E3. Bethesda started doing this last year. E3 usually starts on Monday, but Bethesda decided, hey, we're going to be early this year. They did that last year. Really jumped the gun on E3 and kind of changed the way they do E3, at least this year. So they did it again, but EA decided they were going to do the exact same thing and go before them. So EA had a press conference this afternoon at 3 Central, and a lot of it was was what you'd kind of expect. We did get Titanfall 2 gameplay or trailer, as well as talking about the campaign. Really was apparent to me that they were very much wanting to say, hey, we're sorry, we know that single player is important, the story is important to you guys, we're going to bring that to you, we're going to show you the integration between these mechs and you, why does it matter, why does this bond matter, and kind of play around more in that world that they've created, which I think is fantastic because it's like the Star Wars Battlefront. When that came out, everyone was really excited, and then realized there's no campaign, so there's no story. It doesn't give you real good context. With Titanfall being able to do that with the sequel, I think they've really shown that they made a mistake with the first one, and that they're ready to right that and do it right the second time. Sometimes it takes a second time to do things right. Speaking of sometimes taking a second time, this taking, I don't know how many, what are we at, 30 games now? Madden 17. One of my predictions was that we were going to get 15 minutes of sports talk at E3, and we got well over 25 minutes. Beginning with Madden. One thing that EA knows is that this is one of their big moneymakers, and I can't really fault them for that. But one thing that I did like was that they discussed esports and basically bringing Madden into the esports realm a little bit more, and actually hosting a championship right now, the Madden Championship, that will actually be going on ESPN 3, and then and streaming online, and then ESPN 2 on Tuesday. We'll have the finals for that, which I think was really cool. I mean, to legitimize esports like that was pretty interesting. So I liked that. Tell me what you guys thought. Let's see, what else? Well, I called it, knew it was going to happen. We got some Mass Effect, and was really happy to see this. Not only is it some really cool graphics, but they talked about about humans and us venturing out into the galaxy, into the Andromeda galaxy. So basically, what it's sounding like is this is kind of Earth's first foray into I don't know, maybe into meeting other extraterrestrials. I'm not 100% sure. But one thing that I really liked about it was, well, not only the artistry and being able to see all of this, but get a glimpse of Mako at one point in the trailer. So I don't know if we get to pilot a Mako again. But that would be pretty awesome. I think that one thing that I really missed when it came to Mass Effect 3 was exploring other planets. It just felt too linear. I felt like I was going through a hallway, or I was just kind of hopping to just the places that they wanted me to go. One of the first games that really did this really well was Knights of the Old Republic, where they tried to make it seem like you were going wherever you wanted to go, and yeah, this is kind of another good example of that. If they do it the right way, it can make it seem like you're getting a really big free choice, and you have all these multiple planets to go around and explore when they don't have to design every single one of them. One other thing that I thought was really cool they mentioned was their play to give. EA is basically saying, hey, we're going to be donating $1 million to charity, and it is contingent, or it sounded like they were saying it was contingent on completing certain trials, certain achievements as a group for everyone over specific games. But when it boiled down to it, he didn't say if you complete it, we will give the money. He just said we will, at the end of it, we'll give the money. So I think that they wanted to make sure they didn't seem like they were, kind of giving themselves an out, so that they can say, all right, we are going to give the money, but at the same time, it was kind of interesting to me for them to say, hey, we've got all these trials for you to do. We need you to complete these different things, different checkpoints, and different accomplishments. And and at the end, we're just going to give the money away anyways. Not certain charities when, like, let's say there's multiple teams of the people who are doing this gets this charity, this gets this charity. There's other ways to do it. Even then, that might not be a very good way to do it, but you're still, giving it some type of incentive. More with sports, we had FIFA 17, which I thought this was just beautiful. There was an actor that came out to talk about, who was talking as if he was one of the footballers, soccer players, that was getting a chance to play in a Premier League, in one of the kind of the big leagues of soccer in England, or football if you're in Europe or elsewhere in the world. And FIFA has decided they're going to add a career mode. And the career mode, you play. I'm assuming you play this person. It didn't seem like it gave you a choice, but I thought it was really interesting. One of my favorite things in like WWE games and some others were actually career modes, because you play the game, but it makes it more important when you win or when you lose. It makes every single matchup that you go across, every single game that you play, more important than just, I win all the time. It actually gives some heft to it. Again, going back to what I said. Excuse me, it's alive. Going back to what I said about Titanfall and Battlefront, it gives weight, it gives gravity to the actual situation that you're going through, and I think that all that can do is better a situation, better a game, better a story, especially when it comes to a sports game. What is the context? What is going on in this game? Why does it matter? It matters to this individual. I think that was really great for them to show that aspect of real life. What else did we get? Yes, so we also got Fee. This one is the EA. What did they call it? Gotta love live. So this is the EA Originals, which I thought was funny because it's basically a indie game that they picked up, but it's beautiful. They said you're exploring a forest and everything in it. Not only are you doing that and exploring, but there is no dialogue throughout the game. I've heard quite a few people describe this as really relaxing. I don't know if I'd consider it relaxing, but I love the art style. It reminds me of a few games that came out recently, one of which is Severed on Vita. It's a really cool art style, and I like the minimalist kind of use of colors in it, and something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on. Another thing that we predicted was going to show up is more Star Wars. It wasn't the way that I thought it was going to show up, but it was a really cool way to show, yes, look at all these projects that we have. EA has a lot of Star Wars projects that are going on, And I think it was really great for them to kind of spotlight each one of them, as opposed to just showing one. They just showed just a little bit of each, including DICE at Stockholm. So DICE is going to be taking over Battlefront 2. Talk about Bespin. And there were a few glimpses of some other bits, and there's a little glimpse of VR for you. So it's really apparent that what we're going to get some VR, and later on, talk about a little more action. These guys at Respawn are fantastic. And then if we go even further, the one that I think a lot of us were waiting for, and we didn't get anything big announcement-wise on. We got some concept art. And immediately when I see that, I think, okay, we're going really deep into the world. We're going really deep into Star Wars. So this might not be 1313, but I think it's going to be close to that. It's going to be something that's going to be very much more at the heart of Star Wars. And Star Wars at its heart is not about the Jedi and the Force. It's all about this lived-in world. Ooh. Excuse me. So, also got some Battlefront to kind of round out and end out the EA coverage. One thing that I like that they talked about this was they said, hey, are we really going to have horses? Are we really going to have these giant zeppelins? Are we going to have, is there going to be shovels? Talking about trench warfare. And he said yes. They said yes, this is all going to be in here. You're going to get that vehicle combat. This is the first time we used tanks. This is the first time that we used planes in a war. There were even zeppelins used, as you just saw there. And I think that the gravity of this war is really lost in time. And I think it's time that we kind of revisit it in a way. And I think there's a lot of material here for them to use. And then after the conference ended, they had a huge, giant multiplayer fiasco. So if you wanted something to do during the day before Bethesda, that was it. So when Bethesda came out, I forgot to mention that, by the way. When EA came out, they had a little music that played, and then the CEO came out. When Bethesda came out, first thing that they came out with was this: Quake Champions. Quake is back. That's right. Hashtag Patrick was right. Quake Champions. Quake is back. People thought, oh, it's redundant because they just did Doom. This is a very different universe. It's a very different type of game. One of the things that they highlighted on there is the fact that Quake is still one of the top games that people will play competitively. They'll go to conventions and play Quake 2 competitively. They even mentioned, QuakeCon. QuakeCon is Bethesda's, that's this Bethesda's convention that they will hold. Convention, if you want to call it that. I think I'd consider it one. So Patrick was right. That's right. Right here. Quake is back. Probably one of my favorite parts of the conference. Then we also got a little look at the Elder Scrolls Legends. I mentioned this before. I mentioned on my E3 predictions. But what they need for this to succeed is to be different than Hearthstone and all of their competitors. And they mentioned the single-player campaign and the story. So I'm hoping that there's enough there to hook people. There's enough there that will bring people in to, to bring them to this franchise. This franchise is fantastic, but how do you topple Hearthstone? Right now, Hearthstone is making ridiculous amounts of money for Blizzard. And even when it's not making money, you have millions of people who are playing it every single day. Play it on PC, play it on mobile. And to break into that type of franchise, or not type of franchise, that type of game, you're going to have to break the mold, or you're going to have to best Blizzard. That's going to be really tough to do. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. I mean, they tried to do Elder Scrolls Online, and that didn't work as well as they thought. So, curious to see how this will work, but I'm hopeful. Next thing that they talked about Fallout. As we knew they would talk about Fallout. And when they discussed it, they mentioned Fallout 4's DLC contraptions, giving you more and more ways to customize the wasteland, which I thought was fantastic. I always thought it was really cool when in Fallout 4, the ability to create all these electronics, not to just power water, but to turn on lights. This is out next week, as they said. They also mentioned Vault Tech, so you can build your own vault, which I kind of saw coming, but at the same time, I'm curious how in-depth this will really go. I'm assuming what this means is it's just and what it looks like is there's going to be a giant, there's going to be kind of a giant hole, and you kind of build a vault. So what I'm hoping that they're doing with this is actually integrating what they did with with Fallout Shelter, integrating what they learned with that with Fallout 4 itself. Bethesda likes to take what they learned and better it, and I think that may be what they are doing. So, very exciting stuff. And another bit that they mentioned, which we talked about on the show, I had as a prediction, Skyrim Remaster. And they even said on there that everyone has been asking about this. And the reason is that Skyrim struck a chord with so many people. Skyrim, I wouldn't say it's the best of the Elder Scrolls games, but it hit a chord with so many people and had more people playing it that a lot of people compare all the other ones to it. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of the water design and snow and weather, and immediately when I was watching that, I thought, wow, they took a hint from all the mod community. And then they've unveiled that mods will be available on PS4 and Xbox. So again, like I said, Bethesda is learning from what they've done in the past and carrying it over to their other properties. In this case, they said, hey, we were able to do this with Fallout 4, which they just did, bringing it back to Skyrim, which is fantastic. Speaking of bringing something on, brand new IP coming out. Bethesda announced Prey, brand new intellectual property coming out of their conference. Totally didn't expect it. A few people on Twitter have kind of been blowing up about this, and rightfully so. This looks beautiful, which I don't expect anything less from Bethesda. I'm really, really happy with this little teaser that we got. So, what'd you guys think of Prey? I thought it was one of the more interesting things that we got out of the conference. Another thing we got, though, is we got some Doom. And I mentioned on my E3 predictions that I thought we were going to get Doom multiplayer. And we get that. We get more multiplayer, but we also get... Sorry, this is the little thank you that they do. Talking about how great Doom is. And one thing that I didn't expect is... create as the snap... Where was it? The snap maps. So snap maps in Doom, creating your own levels. Creating your own levels, single player, multiplayer, doesn't matter. You can create any of that. As well as the first round of DLC for Doom that's coming out, which is a bunch of multiplayer maps. Again, Patrick was right. Multiplayer maps for Doom. I don't really see why. Especially now that they've said, hey, we have Quake. So unless like I said, Bethesda likes to take one thing, learn from what they've done, and then carry it over. If what they're doing with Doom is going to basically teach them how to do multiplayer deathmatch and arena fighting for Quake, they may take what they're doing here and then carry it over into Quake. It's probably what they're doing. These guys are good. Next bit on there, which I thought was kind of nice, they talked about Elder Scrolls Online. Elder Scrolls Online hasn't done as well as they thought it would, but they did mention they're bringing the Dark Brotherhood in. I like how they mentioned the 34 billion monsters slain. If you do the math of how many people have been playing Warcraft and EverQuest and all that, it sounds like a really big number. But yeah, it's not as big as it's big, but it's not as big as it sounds when you extrapolate out of how many people are actually playing the game, how many times you fight mud crabs, because mud crabs are everywhere. So I think that they're really trying to revitalize this. They're trying to breathe new life into it. They did not announce a big. What I thought they were going to do is basically take the entire franchise and say, all right, we're kind of rebooting, and we're starting from the ground up, kind of like what Cataclysm did for World of Warcraft. They didn't end up doing that. I thought they would. Didn't happen. But then we saw what Bethesda's conference was really about. Last year, Bethesda's conference was talking all about Fallout 4, getting you excited for Fallout 4. It didn't matter if you liked Fallout before. Fallout 4 became your game. And this year, it was all about Dishonored. Dishonored 2 gameplay, Dishonored 2 more and more gameplay and discussion of the world and how immersive it is, talking about the technology, and not only that, but using the stealth mechanic and having to break certain people's, all your NPCs having specific things that they're specific goals and specific kind of not just walk cycles. See, if you guys have been playing games as long as I have, NPCs first would just kind of stand there, and then you'd have patrols, and an NPC would just kind of go between two spots. Then they were trying to add kind of life to worlds, and then Bethesda with Morrowind said, yeah, when you go to a town, these NPCs are going to have things that they have to do. They have jobs, they have chores they have to do, they have errands they have to run, they have to go sell something, and this is kind of bringing that into a next level. And it really got me excited about Dishonored. And not only did it get me excited, but right at the end they said the Dishonored Collector's Edition, Dishonored 2 Collector's Edition, will come with Dishonored 2, the Definitive Edition. So if you needed to sell me on something, that's how you do it. They primed everyone up, showing you how beautiful this game looks, how immersive it is, and how great it's going to be. And then right at the end they said, hey, you can buy the Collector's Edition. Buy it now because it's going to sell out, and it's going to. And the icing on the cake, get Dishonored. So if you guys didn't play Dishonored, you can get the Definitive Edition if you pre-order. So that's my plan. I think a few people that I know already have the Definitive Edition. I may borrow from them, or end up playing it. But I'm probably going to give them money for this because this game looks amazing. So far, this is one of my favorite things out of E3. That and Quake just showed me a trailer, and it's more than likely going to be tons and tons and tons of multiplayer. But if they have a single-player campaign, if they have a story and all that multiplayer, you have my money. And I think Bethesda's going to do that. Again, so Patrick was right on that. If you guys are keeping track at home on the E3 countdown, so Kevin has a point. I was messaging him earlier. We were discussing should we count the Mass Effect gameplay. So Mass Effect Andromeda showed a bunch of footage, but we were not sure. We were not sure if that was actually gameplay in there or if that was just cinematics. So I'm not going to count that. we both kind of mentioned it, so I'm not going to count it. But Kevin got a point because, excuse me, EA brought in a non-gaming celebrity who announced nothing about the game and did not announce a new game, did not announce a feature at all. When they were talking about FIFA 17, they talked about the managers and how great club managers are. Club managers meaning the coaches, the managers and coaches of football, soccer. And he mentioned 3 of them, and then another one came out, the guy from Manchester United. And I thought that I thought that was exactly what EA usually does. So spot on, Kevin. You got that one right. Non-gaming person coming out to do nothing, and then I was almost about to say, all right, you're not going to get the point for it, but then we had Jamie Foxx and what's his name, Zac Efron, right afterwards. So if you didn't get the point before, you got it there, Kevin. Actually, he just messaged saying that he also gets points when he agreed. So so he has more than one, surely. Actually, yeah, you do. So we discussed half points if Kevin agrees. So far in my predictions, we have 7 points. So we'll go from EA. 15 minutes of sports, we had 25. Mass Effect Andromeda gameplay, I'm going to let that one pass right now because I don't know if that was actually it. We had Battlefield 1 gameplay, lots of it. Titanfall 2 trailer and single player, we got that. Moving on to Bethesda, we had Dishonored 2 gameplay, we got it. Doom multiplayer, we got it. Remaster of Elder Scrolls, yep. And one of my long shots, Quake, is there. So far the score, if you guys are keeping track at home, I'm at 7. Kevin is at 4.5. Half points for anything Kevin agreed with me on. So 4.5 to 7 for the day before E3. Tomorrow's really the big day. Tomorrow we have Microsoft. Tomorrow we have Sony. And tomorrow we have Ubisoft. That's going to be the big one when it comes to points. It's going to be the big one when it comes to announcements. Bethesda is big. They're one of the few studios that can do something like this on their own and for it to matter. The other one being, I'd say, Blizzard and Rockstar. Rockstar doesn't do this, but Blizzard has their own. So I think that tomorrow we should see some bigger announcements. Hopefully some kind of big movers and shakers, something really big kind of happening. But hopefully it's good, and hopefully I keep up my lead. But we'll see if Kevin was right on more of these. We'll see you guys later.